Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss about the political caricatures during the American period, and there are the presenter from Business Entrepreneurship of Palawan State University, El Nido campus. So, what is political caricatures? Philippine cartoon Political Caricatures of the American Era is a book authored by Alfred William McCoy, an American professor of history and award-winning writer. A political cartoon is a cartoon that makes a point about a political issue or event. You can find them in any daily newspaper, but they won't be in the comic section. Made for the purpose of conveying editorial commentary on politics, politicians, and current events. Such cartoons play a role in the political discourse of a society that provides for freedom of speech and of the press. So here, it is the author's background. He is Alfred William McCoy, and he is born on June 8, 1945 on Massachusetts, USA, and he is an American. It is also an author's background. It shows that Alfred William McCoy is a professor of history at the University of Wisconsin, where he also served as director of the Center of the Southeast Asian Studies, specializing in Philippine political history and global opium trafficking. He spent the first quarter of his life writing about the politics and history of the opium trade. So, for those who do not know, opium is like marijuana, that it has a narcotic effect those who have hallucinations in its users. So, Alfred William McCoy earned also an award, and this award is a Philippine Catholic Mass Media Award, Best Book of the Year for 1985, Philippine National Book Award for History 1986, Gintong Aklat Award, Manila Special Citation for History 1987. It is also an author's background. During the American era, political cartoons gained popularity as a form of expression. Many artists made use of cartoons as political commentaries to expose the ills of the American colonial government. McCoy provided an analysis of the pressing problems and issue of American colonialism manifested in political cartoons. Together with Alfredo Reyes Rosas, an artist, they compiled many political cartoons by Filipino artists depicting the Philippines during American rules. These are the other popular works. Shadows of the American Century, The Rise of and Decline of U.S. Global Power, 2017, Policing America's Empire, the United States, the Philippines, and the Rise of the Surveillance State on 2009. Politics of Heroin in Southeast Asia, a classic work on drug trafficking, blocked by CIA, but remained in print for more than 50 years and translated to 9 languages. So, it is Alfredo Reyes Rosas. He was born on April 2, 1923, and he was a painter, an essayist, and a versatile artist who is considered to be a prominent figure in the Philippines. His painting started with figurative style but soon began to amalgamate Expressionism, Fauvism, and Impressionism. Several newspapers in Manila like The Independent and the Philippines Free Press and Bagong Kusog are leading cartoons in their editorial. So, it is an historical information. It depicts the first of Manila's periodic police scandals during the American era. The cartoonist Fernando Amorsolo gives the illustration of his usual racist errors. For example, Chinese men are usually caricatured for they are described as corruptors or opium smugglers. So here in this image, the police allowed the Chinese to spread opium in the Philippines. Until now, that is happening. Because where do drugs come from the Philippines? Most of it came from China. So to show annoyance or frustration, they made the drawing or editorial cartoons to show to the people. And this is also an example. In this image, handing control of the Board of Health to Filipinos, public health risks. So we notice that different types of genres or fields are discussed by political cartoons. There are many others that can be discussed as long as you have a broad mind. Yes. The Independent. The Independent. was founded in 1915 by the father of Cebuano letters, Vicente Soto, one of the militant and aggressive advocates of immediate independence. It was a weekly newspaper published in English and Spanish, which served as forum for the discussion of political issues. It was also where Fernando Amorsal began his career as the angriest of Manila's political cartoonists. So, it is the Independent first cartoon example. The first example was published in the Independent on May 20, 1916. So in this image, the cartoon shows a politician from Tondo named Dr. Santos passing his crown to his brother-in-law, Dr. Barcelona, a Filipino guy, as depicted, wearing salakot and barong Tagalog, was trying to stop Santos, telling the latter to stop giving Barcelona the crown because it is not to begin with. This cartoon usually speaks about politics that the crown is represent the Philippines. The crown symbolizes the sovereignty that the Filipinos should have. During the Treaty of Paris, the Philippines was sold by the Spaniards to the Americans in the amount of $20 million. So we know that the Philippines, especially the government of Nido, they tried to express their opinion. They tried to this stage to happen, but happened. There are no Philippines during the Treaty of Paris. Philippines have no representatives that time. So this already happened. The crown is eventually given to us. But the colonization from Spain has passed until Americans. And this is the second example. The second cartoon was also published by the Independent on June 16, 1917. This was drawn by Fernando Amorsal and was aimed as commentary to the working of Manila police at the period. So here we see a Filipino child who stole a skin chicken because he had nothing to eat. The police officer was relentlessly pursuing the said child. A man wearing a salakot labeled the one in the purse was grabbing the officer, telling him to leave a small time, pickpockets and thieves, and turn at the great deals instead. He was pointing towards warehouses containing books of rice, milk, and grocery products. In this cartoon, it shows that the rich people were controlling the economy. They were controlling the natural and economic resources of a particular country, and that happened also. This cartoon is speak of the inequality. It speaks to the gap between the rich and the poor, and this is the real happen in Philippines sitting during the American era, and also for today. And this is the third cartoon example. The third cartoon was published by the Independent on November 27, 1915. The caricature of Uncle Sam riding a chariot pulled by Filipinos wearing school uniforms. Here we see the caricature Uncle Sam riding a chariot was pulled by Filipinos wearing school uniforms. So we can see the Filipino boys were carrying American objects like baseball bats, whiskey, and boxing gloves. So, according to Alfred McCoy, he says that in this cartoon it was based on an event in 1907 when William Howard Taft was brought to the Manila Fair riding a chariot pulled by students of the Liceo de Manila, and this event was condemned by nationalists at that time. It actually means that the Americans controlled us. Why? Because they brainwashed the Filipinos by using mentality, using hard, seemingly harmless colonization. He seems to say sweet words but with a bad thought to the Filipinos. So this is how the Americans conquered the Filipinos that time. So also in the picture we can see that the Americans greeted the Filipino because Filipino are so harmless mentality. And the fourth cartoon depicts in cinema. A blown-up police officer was at the screen saying that couples are not allowed to neck and make love in the theater. Two youngsters looked horrified while another couple seemed amused. So, this cartoon, um, this cartoon depicts a cinema. A blown-up police officer was at the screen saying that couples are not allowed to neck and make love in the theater. Two youngsters looked horrified while another couple seemed amused. This time, the Spaniards has taught us conservatism because it is part of Christianity. When the American came, they taught the Filipinos to become liberated. When it comes to make love at that time, it was shown that two contradicting between the culture's conservatism and the cultural liberalism. To other Filipinos who are still practicing the culture of conservatism, they are not liberal, as if they immediately give a meaning like to holding hands in public and making love visible in public. So that's a culture we learned from the Spaniards rather than our Christian faith. When the Americans arrived, the Filipinos' conservatism shifted and they adopted the American ethos of liberalism. So, example of Philippine Free Press. This cartoon was a commentary on the unprecedented cases of colorum automobiles in the city streets. The Philippine Free Press published this commentary when accidents involving colorum vehicles and taxis occurred too often already. So in this cartoon or caricature represent the appearance of automobiles indicating the coming of a new transportation system provided by Americans. It was the Americans that introduced the vehicle and other new transportation systems that we had in the Philippines. Also, Philippines Free Press was founded in 1906 by Judge W.A. Kincaid, but and was taken over by Macaulay due to bankruptcy. The newspaper was published in both Spanish and English. It featured investigate articles regarding the country's development. It had a personal tone since it was not tied to a particular political party. It also advocated integrity, democracy, and Philippines' national progress. Bagong Puso. In Cebu, one popular newspaper was the Bagong Puso, which literally means new force. Bagong Puso was known for highlighting conditions in Cebu prior to the war. It often talked about the differences between the Spanish and the American colonial governments. This newspaper depicted the breakdown of hallowed costume and social practices due to American influence that focused on criticism of co-education introduced by Americans which endangered the virtue of women. Also, El Renacimiento is a newspaper's name too. So, El Renacimiento Rebirth was a bilingual Spanish to Tagalog language newspapers printed in Manila until 1914 by the member of the Guerrero de Ermita family. Was published on September 3, 1901, founded as a response to the Treaty of Paris. It was published on September 3, 1901. This newspaper detailed the Philippine struggle sovereignty. This paper shut down due to official pressure after publishing an editorial that dealt with corruption in the colonial government. La Vanguardia, Spanish daily newspapers. So it is also a newspaper. Spanish daily newspaper founded in 1881, printed since May 3, 2011, was published in Manila between 1910 and 1944. Promoted by Martin Ocampo, Fernando Maria Guerrero, who has 5,900 copies. Rosa's Family, 1916, 32,000 copies on 1940. Content and presentation and analysis. The presentation of the cartoons varies from racial to conservative, vivid, and worthy to express the cartoonist's views, and languages used are either English or Spanish. The victims are presented in a bad and sorry state to convey sympathy from the readers. The characters of emphasize on the good side are shown in normal features, while the bad emaciated, leering, laughing creatures more on animal creatures than human. The artists, using their cartoons, illustrated not just their opinions but broad image of the Philippines under US. It's not just cartoons by artists that are posted there, but what the condition of the Philippines really is under the American era. Back then, the internet was not that widespread, so we often only saw it in the newspapers. An example of this is that corrupt politicians often do this with the human body, but the crocodile's head is placed to show that they are corrupt. Content representation analysis also. The transition from Spanish colonial period to American occupation shows different changes as well as in culture, society, and politics. The drastic introduction of democracy to a nation not properly oriented about it and its consequences are far from ideal. Thus, it ushered free press. The rich remained affluent and powerful while the poor people remained poor, desperate, and victims of state repression. According to our research, if we go back to the past, only one government general really gave the Filipinos to hold various positions in the government. After the removal of Governor General Carlos Maria de la Torre, the running of the government returned to the Spaniards. Then, when the Americans arrived, the right to govern suddenly returned to us. According to experts, when it comes to governance, we can reflect that we are not 100% good because we are no longer trained to run our country properly. These are the contribution and relevance. Editorial cartoons play an important role in understanding the Filipino sentiments concerning the transition of governance from Spain to the Americans. Pressing issues are clearly illustrated in the caricature of characters and satirized situations in the Philippine society during the American era. Indeed, artists' free expressions of thoughts through their cartoons or caricatures somehow influence a Filipino at a particular period. Here's some learning experience. Media influence can be an actual force resulting change in audience or individual beliefs. This effect can be positive or negative, abrupt or gradual, short-term or long-lasting. However, not all effects result in change. Some media messages reinforce an existing belief, attitudes, as well as behavior of the populace. Cartoon editorials compiled by McCoy as a print media surely have made an impact among the Filipino readers during the American period until today, including works of art and editorials. The study of history is good strategy. So before ending this video, these are references that you can visit to have an information. And thank you for listening and watching for this video. Have a nice day. Thank you.